Okay. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We're always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda or other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. The law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We hope that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community. Thank you for attending.
As required under the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 1046 et sequentia, adequate notice was given for calling this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Trenton Times on January 6, 2022, and distributed also to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this virtual Zoom meeting that the proceedings are being recorded. This meeting is not being live streamed. Public members who wish to make comment at the appropriate time, as noted in the agenda or added by the presiding officer, shall raise their hand virtually at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Once called upon, the member of the public will be requested to unmute themselves by clicking the mute button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. The representative of the sending district is authorized to vote on such matters that affect sending district students or affect the governance of the Princeton Public Schools, as more specifically designated in NJSA 18A 38.8.1. In the event the statute is amended, the law shall take precedence over this bylaw. Sending district votes pertaining to personnel actions refer to high school, central administrative, and district-wide staff only. Votes otherwise are considered abstentions.
Okay, Mr. Bolden, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Daphne Kendall?
Yes, here.
Betsy Baglio?
Yes, here, sorry.
Beth Barron?
Here.
Debbie Bronfeld?
Here.
Jean Durbin?
Present.
Mara Franceschi?
Here.
Brian McDonald?
Present.
Susan Cantor?
Here.
Robert Christopher?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bolden. So we have a couple things tonight. We're going to welcome Princeton High School student Gabriella Dong, and she's going to tell us about her success with her science program. But I wanted to start first at the beginning of this meeting.
Could we do the adoption minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that there?
D1.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. D1. Can I get a motion for D1, the adoption of the minutes? Beth? Second? Debbie?
Daphne Kendall?
Yes.
Betsy Baglio?
Yes.
Beth Barron?
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld?
Yes.
Jean Durbin?
Yes.
Mara Franceschi?
Yes.
Brian McDonald?
Yes.
Susan Cantor?
Yes.
Rob Christopher?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Back to you, Daphne.
Okay. Seeing the agenda, our student board reps, Ned and Chris are up, so I will turn it over to them. Thank you for joining us. We hope you're enjoying your final weeks at PHS.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. Good evening, everyone. This year, our goal has really been to give a voice to the students, specifically and especially to the students who are not otherwise given the opportunity to advocate for themselves. In this spirit, Ned and I want to revisit a topic that we introduced earlier this year and heard about at the last meeting, which is the lack of attention that's given to ELL students within this district. This school district has given both Ned and I so much, and it's opened up a world of opportunity to the both of us, and it breaks our heart to see that this opportunity has not been fully extended to all of our peers.
We've heard a lot about equity over the course of this past year, but we've noticed that our ELL peers have been repeatedly overlooked in these conversations. Just because students don't have the parents with the language skills or experience in this district necessary to advocate for them does not mean they should be shut out of the opportunities that this district prides itself on. I remember being in a class last year with a classmate who spoke only Spanish. Because the teacher couldn't speak Spanish, in that class, the student sat there every day and did literally nothing and learned nothing. These students are simply not given a fighting chance in this district. They're set up to fail and something must be done about it. Now I want to be clear, the ELL teachers in PHS go above and beyond every single day, spending their own time and money and working tirelessly to better their students. There have also been attempts within the school administration to recognize and support all our ELL community members, but this can only go so far. Change must come from the district level. We are here to tell you that our peers are hurting. We cannot afford to keep failing them. And we think a good first step should be talking with the ELL students, parents, and teachers in this district to get to know their struggles and lived experiences before delivering concrete action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nan and Chris. We appreciate your advocacy for all students at Princeton High School. We really do. So thank you for that. Anyone have any questions, comments? No, okay. So now we're going to move on to the president's report. And I just wanted to start the meeting just by saying, I wanted to take a moment to mourn the victims of the elementary school shooting in San Antonio today, which so far has resulted in the deaths of 18 children and 2 teachers. This is every parent's worst nightmare, and we extend our sympathies to the people of San Antonio. We here in Princeton are very fortunate to have an engaged community. We all want what's best for our children, and the board wants what's best collectively for all our students. Sometimes our different priorities leads to a concern about resources. But here in Princeton, it really is a both and proposition. We have to focus on preserving excellence that is the hallmark of this district, while addressing the persistent gaps in achievement, such as the ones Chris and Ned just mentioned. This is historically how we have done things in Princeton, addressing all the needs. And this is how we will continue to address these 2 issues. And with that, I'd like to just, if we could have a moment of silence, please, for the victims in San Antonio. Okay. Thank you. Now for a little bit of celebration, we invited tonight Gabriella Dong. And Gabriella, if I said your pronouns, I apologize. You are one of only 95 students in the state to have been recognized as a governor's STEM scholar. And so we wanted to invite you to congratulate you. And also if you could tell, we invited your teacher as well, but Mr. Higgins couldn't make it. But if you would take a few minutes and just tell us about your project and your success, we'd really love to hear it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really, really grateful. And I feel so fortunate to be a part of the New Jersey STEM Scholars program. It taught me a lot about STEM, jobs in STEM, internships, communication, inquiry, and so much more. So we had the opportunity to visit multiple universities around New Jersey and attend conferences there. We also had the opportunity to go on a variety of different field trips to learn a little bit more about different areas in STEM. And so throughout the program, we worked on research projects and groups, and essentially what our group did was develop an auditory biofeedback system to assist balance, and it was super cool. Yep.
Well, that sounds great, and we're so proud of you, and we know you'll do great things. So thank you for coming tonight, and congratulations on your prestigious award. We're very proud of you. Okay. We will now move on to the superintendent's comments. Dr. Kelly.
Evening. Thank you, Board President Kendall, and congratulations once again, Gabriella. We're very proud of you. Before I turn the mic over to our guests to provide the board and the community with an update on our strategic planning process, I would like to take a few moments just to read a brief statement. Please indulge me. So we continue as a school district and a community to work hard to serve all of our students and to work collaboratively with our parents. In the past several months, we've made every effort to address a false narrative about our mathematics program. Regarding mathematics in Princeton Public Schools, we have very specific plans to continue our excellent math program without any significant changes. At Princeton High School specifically, we will continue to teach calculus, AP Calculus, Calculus AP, AP Calculus BC, and Multivariable Calculus Accelerated. About 23% of our Princeton High School students take calculus, and we have no plans to change that. In fact, we would like a higher percentage of students to have the opportunity to take upper level courses. If you are interested in what is actually happening in our mathematics program, please take a look at our comprehensive question and answer on our website. I really want to thank Elizabeth Collier, our Public Information Officer, for putting everything together for us. We plan to drop the link in tonight's chat. Now, regarding strategic planning, I would like to take this opportunity as well to clarify a slide that was shared as a part of the planning process. The slide said PPS wanted, quote unquote, equal outcomes for all students. More precise wording would be equal opportunity for all students. So let me just reiterate that all of our advanced level courses at Princeton High School will continue. There are no changes planned for our mathematics program at Princeton Middle School also. There is a totally incorrect description of Princeton Public Schools as wanting to eliminate accelerated learning opportunities circulating via email and social media, but nothing can be further from the truth. I just wanted to point that out, and I'm sorry that I had to take the time of the community and the board, but we are at an amazing opportunity. And I would like for us as a community to come together as we're looking at our strategic planning process to really continue to fight, as our two scholars, Ned and Chris, said earlier, not just for the students who are around physically this table, but for all of our students in Princeton Public Schools. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to our partner, Mutu. And I don't think I see Laura on the line, but you have the mic and you also have the screen to provide the board and the community with an update on our very transparent process. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
That we are undergoing to allow our schools and our departments to align our actions with what the community is hoping for and dreaming for each and every student that we serve. Mutu and Lauren, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to work with the district. It's President Kendall said a few minutes ago that we have a very engaged community in Princeton. We certainly do that. And personally, I think that's an asset. For those of you who've had a chance to look at our process, we encourage a very transparent, very open process, which we'll describe again. We believe that the more people participate in the process, the better the product, which means we have a better chance of getting all kids home, as I like to describe it. Our role really hasn't changed. We pride ourselves on being facilitators, and a facilitator is a guide. A guide does not command or control. It wouldn't work anyway, but a guide does direct, leaving it up to you to decide where you want to go. So success for us at Performance Fact really means we meet your expectations. Actually, we exceed your expectations. We have no prior agenda. Whatever you decide upon is fine with us. And we still hang on to the position of being a facilitator as a guide to get everyone home. It's the process we call for also is very open to everyone. All the materials are available. And you will see this evening what's been done so far. A fair amount of work has been accomplished. And we expect to be done in no later than September. Lauren is going to take the lead on updating you on the process itself and on the work that's been done to date. So it's really nice to be back by Zoom anyway. And I hope you, well, both Lauren and I are here to answer your questions this evening. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Mutio. Good evening to the board and to the community and the students who are here. It's really great to be able to share where we are in our process. We know a little bit about what we've done so far. One of the things that we like to think about is how we align our perspective with your internal vision. So how do we come to the table to figure out how we support your goals and aspirations? And we've been learning a lot and are excited to share where we are thus far. As a cornerstone of our work, and I really commend the students for their advocacy to kick off this board meeting. We do believe strongly that all students will learn at high levels when instruction meets their needs. And that if there's something a student has not yet learned well, it's because we have not yet figured out the necessary practices as the adults in the system. And so the whole discovery process that we go through is to learn what is working well, what are we doing as adults in the system that's working well, and then what are the things that we want to continue to grow and develop in terms of teaching practices, leadership practices, and organizational practices. And so our charge that we're here and committed is to support the development of the strategic plan that begins by clarifying the goals and measures of student achievement. And we will be sharing the beginning draft of that work tonight. We also are focused on what is the outline of the roadmap that will take Princeton towards the accomplishment of those goals. We want to make sure that we continue throughout the process to embrace the diverse stakeholders and the diverse voices of those stakeholders in the process. And we want to be supporting all of the leaders, whether the leadership is in the classroom, or the leadership are the students, or the leadership are the district leadership, to take courageous action to achieve goals. We know that you have a diverse district, and it has actually been such a privilege and an honor. I had the opportunity to begin 2 of the student voice sessions this past week, and I'll be meeting with the high school group tomorrow. And I think that it's been wonderful to hear the elevation of a variety of voices of students, including, hearing from students with disabilities. And I want to continue to think about how we continue to elevate the voices of our English learners in the process. So why are we planning? The ultimate purpose of planning, we suggest, is to come into alignment. Misalignment happens all the time, and the process of planning through discussion, through dialogue, through the process that we shepherd, we hope to support to bring the community in alignment, to have a unity of purpose and shared goals. It's by getting the peoples, the processes, and the programs on the same page, going in the same direction, that we're able to get to the outcomes that we want for children. You'll notice that the arrows don't give up their shape. Our perspectives are unique. And it's not about necessarily sacrificing any. It's about just all agreeing on where we're headed together. And so how do we do that? These are just some of the diverse voices and perspectives that we've engaged in the process and will continue to engage as we go through. The way that we really address this primarily is through the use of a series of teams. The first team being the core planning team. And this is the team that includes stakeholders from all of the different groups. And this team is really the ones who steward the process. They got their first experience of this on the 19th when we just met with them. And I'll share a little bit about what we focused on. They really work to integrate all of the perspectives that are shared. So as we go out and meet with a variety of other teams, whether it's getting more input from the student voice that we're getting this week and we'll continue to get, whether it's from the instructional focus team or community forums, or from the school board, we bring all of that back, and the core planning team works to integrate all of that into developing the next iteration and the next draft of the work. So meetings to date, which you spoke to this already, we've had several meetings to date from a variety of the teams thus far. And we will continue the work as we go through the year. There are some TBD once we get to the other side of summer in terms of students and things that involve, you know, teachers and being out of classrooms and community. We'll get those dates firmed up, but this is the calendar kind of where we are and where we're headed. But we also wanted to let you just have a sense of what every team is really doing. And we work to support each team in going through the similar process. We start with the data and we say, what data do we have? What information do we have before us that tells us about how students are experiencing school, how students are achieving in school, and how students have access to school? Through the discussion in the various teams, those groups begin to say, what does the data say? Why does it look that way? It's through the dialogue and the team discussion that we come to an understanding of the areas of strength or the areas of concern. And it's by taking all of our unique perspectives and looking at that data and having those conversations that we get to the root causes in order to come up with the solutions. And the solutions are really the plan itself. So we have been working, most teams have had the experience, as you'll see in the next slide, or in 2 slides, the experience with the data and some analysis and discovery, and we've begun working on the components of the plan and the solution. When we're talking about our strategic planning process, we always begin with student learning. Putting student learning at the center is the most essential piece. It's the purpose of, you know, the district and our organization. After we focus on circle number 1, after we're clear on where we're headed, we start to have conversations around instructional effectiveness. And then finally, we begin to think about the infrastructure. So where are we? Thus far, in student learning, the team has worked and has beginning drafts for a portrait of a graduate, which I'll share today, as well as goals and measures. There's been some beginning conversation around vision, mission, and core values. In addition, there's been the beginning work on the 4 pillars, which is around instructional effectiveness and professional practices. And we'll be beginning and continuing to build on that work as we go forward. So how does this all play out? Here's kind of an overlay, and I tried to color code it to give you a sense of the rolling wave of the work is kind of what I was thinking about it today when I was putting this together. The core planning team has met the most frequent, has had the most frequent interaction, and they started with the data you'll see on April 19th and 20th, and then they started working on the portrait, and they came back together and they worked some more on the portrait, and then they continued with goals and mission vision, and they actually, the last time we met, they had done work all the way through on circle 1, and so we started with circle number 2 on instruction. The instructional focus team is kind of following in their own path, did their own data analysis discovery, including an evaluation of instructional practices and a root cause analysis. And then they started a process of reacting to what the core planning team had developed. So they gave feedback on the portrait, they gave feedback on the goals, and the core planning team actually took that first level of feedback to review the goals again today. That's not today, on the 19th. The student voice is also just beginning that wave. We just had 2 sessions. We're going to be gathering data and getting discovery and asking questions to help answer some more of those questions that came up through the data analysis. And all of what the student voice is going to be bringing forward will be shared back with the various teams so that they can hear and integrate in the students' perspectives. The alignment team, which is our community team, has also been engaged in the process. They've met for just a significant, like a much shorter time than the other teams thus far. So we've just really been in the data and discovery phase. And they will be, when we meet tomorrow, kind of taking their next step into the looking forward and looking at student learning in the portrait. And then finally, we had our first community forum on May 5th, and we've put in here it's partially complete in terms of the data analysis and discovery. We were able to, in some of the breakout rooms, or many of the breakout rooms, we're able to kind of take a look at the data, but there's still some more kind of discussion and work on that. And so we're going to be beginning to turn into looking at the student learning and portrait once we come together again in May of this week. Before I move on to the work, I thought I would pause there and just take questions about process before we look at the product. If that makes sense. Yes, go ahead, Betsy. Thank you.
Sure. Just thank you so much for the work thus far. It's been great to engage in. My question is just a timeline question, and maybe you'll speak to this later, but given that this work will go through September in order to engage as many people as possible, which is really terrific, how do you see the implementation of this? I know initially we were thinking we'd have this completed in August, ready to implement at the start of school. Clearly implementation doesn't happen all at once. So again, apologies if you'll speak to this later, but that's just the question about the timeline. And
No,
thanks.
that's great. And I actually would invite Mutio. I know that he's the one, he met with the administrative teams, the site leaders, and I know that they're already in discussions around site planning. So Mutio, and then maybe Dr. Kelly, I don't know if either of you want to address that. Go ahead.
Yeah, implementation is always phased in. And in fact, it's already started. It started 2 weeks ago with the admin team, and all the principals are actually thinking of their school improvement plan on the basis of the work that's been done so far. The fact that the portrait of the graduate is in place and we have the draft goals, those are really the two things the schools need to begin to develop their school improvement plan. And we've introduced them to a template for actually doing that. There's also enough work done such that we can have the district level departments define their priorities for the next school year. So it wouldn't hold it up. It wouldn't be perfect, but it will also not be off course.
It definitely, thank you for that. The May 16th meeting that all of the administrators had with Mutu is helping, that team actually did the data analysis and discovery. They are using the work that has been done by other teams around the portrait of the graduate and the goals. And thanks to Dr. Foster and soon Dr. Tu, they will be working really hand in hand with our school leaders to develop draft school improvement plans. Our hope is that those draft plans will be at least draft in place before they leave for summer break, allowing our department leaders and our cabinet leaders to look at those draft plans and create departmental plans that would serve in support of our schools. So that's kind of the hope. You know, when we set off on this course, ideally, we really wanted to have something to the board for approval in August so that it would be cleaner, but we still feel that we have a lot more in place going into next school year than what the leaders had for this school year. Why this is so important is that next year, every school leader, every departmental leader will be able to share with the board and the community where our efforts are in relationship to some of these goals and the metrics. Again, the work is all about aligning our efforts, our human resources, with what the community desires in terms of our graduates and our goals and metrics. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you so much. I love hearing about all the scaffolding happening already. Thank you all.
Great. Are there any other questions before we turn to just a quick review of the products thus far? Okay, if they pop up later, we'll take questions again. Okay, so I wanted to share a little bit about where we are in terms of the work to date for the portrait, for circle number 1 for student learning. We start with student learning, we start with goals and the portrait because we want to make sure we are really clear up front where we want to end. What are we aiming towards? And so the first draft, what's on the screen here is the first iteration. I want to just first iteration of the portrait of a graduate. This was from the core planning team draft from their 28th meeting. And so in that, through the process, the core planning team really lifted up 6 qualities 6 qualities that they believed would be the center and essential qualities for the portrait. And those qualities were for Princeton public school students to develop as creative and critical thinkers, for Princeton public school students to be culturally and socially proficient community members, for them to develop a sense of authentic self, to be advocates for justice, to persevere, have resilience and adaptability, and to be joyful lifelong learners. They also identified or defined some sub-bullets, I should say, around the attributes. What do you mean? What did the team mean by these particular headings? And so those attribute statements are also shared. You'll see that this is clearly a living document. Even the team working in the first one in Creative Critical Thinker wasn't quite happy with where they landed, and they're trying to still kind of think through some ideas. We also, I think it's the next page. So we also are like, well, what do we do with this portrait? We say it's a draft, so what's next? There already was a whole set of feedback that the instructional focus team provided the week right after the portrait came together. I didn't put this so you could make sense of their notes. It's just more illustrative. And so we're going to have actually 3 more processing input sessions that will then be coming back to the core planning team for feedback. The first is student voice. So tomorrow, actually when I'm with the high schoolers, we're going to be taking a look at this portrait, and they're going to have an opportunity to share their thoughts and perspectives. The alignment team is also going to get a chance to kind of take a look at this and give us some feedback. And we have our community forum on the 31st, and this is a primary focus. So that's kind of the process we go through, is generative feedback, and then the integrators, the core planning team, there'll be a new draft coming out of it. And we hope that, just as Dr. Kelly Amutio just shared, there's some key elements going into the summer are going to be will be more refined. So that's for the portrait, and it will iterate and change as we go through. The second part of circle number 1 that is in process and worked on are the establishing of 5 goals for student success. The first goal that the team proposed is sort of naming it as currently as a focus on the early years. So it's really focusing in on how are we ensuring that we prepare and support all students from ages 3 through 3rd grade for success. The second goal centers on academic and cognitive development and focuses on students' achievement in that area. The third goal focuses on student wellness and inclusivity or inclusion. The fourth goal talks about raising the rigor for all students. And the fifth goal is about preparing students for a meaningful life beyond Princeton Public Schools. Each of those goals currently has a draft list of associated measures. The measures are a way to, 1, get clear about how we're going to know if we're achieving the goals. What are we going to pay attention to and monitor through the process? And so this is, these measures become really a core driver of work and accountability for the district moving forward. In some cases, and I would commend the teams, they have really stretched to lean into measures that are inclusive of, for example, cognitive and academic development, the percent of students who are meeting grade level standards in core subjects as measured by state assessments. Like, it's a given, right? This is a measure we're including, but they really are leaning into things like using feedback to engage in self-assessment, goals related to student learning, real world problems, 21st century skills. So there's just, I'm sharing these now. These are the board, you'll have, I think we sent a PDFs, you'll have them, you can take a further look at them. They're also, so just for the purposes of making sure folks can see it, actually read it. So the focus on the early years, we're looking at achievement in arts, language arts and literacy and mathematics literacy. For each student, thinking about school attendance was a discussion, and thinking about the early grades, making sure students are there and families are well engaged, and then looking at growth criteria. So looking at growth criteria for students in terms of emotional regulation, executive function, creativity, risk-taking, problem solving. For the academic and cognitive development goal, this is where we talked about the grade level standards, as well as some of these more in-depth skills around using feedback, self-assessment, students solving real-world interdisciplinary problems, the student wellness and inclusion in all programs. This one talks about, right now it's school attendance, really want to make sure kids are there as an indicator of wellness, how many are engaged in their own goal setting and have a personal development plan, how many students are feeling, report feeling safe, having a sense of belonging in relationships. And then there's one around self-advocacy and having an advocate. As you can see, it's not quite, a lot of these still need refinement in terms of our next iteration, but just wanted to make sure you see the big ideas. The raising the rigor for all focuses on reducing the disproportionalities that we saw in the data for discipline, suspension, and expulsion rates across student groups. It also talks about ensuring that there's an annual academic growth rate of 1 year for students, for all students. And that growth rate would be measured in a variety of ways, including project portfolios, alternative assessments, or expansive measurements. And then the third one is about increased enrollment and achievement for traditionally underrepresented groups in rigorous academic courses and programs. And the last goal is really the other sort of the bookend here, where we talk about preparing students for a meaningful life beyond Princeton Public Schools. And the three big ideas here, there's a lot of words, we just slim it down, but the big ideas are using 21st century skills, students who have successful transitions, so they're successfully transitioning from pre-K to K, K into elementary, elementary to middle, and even between, all the way into post-secondary experiences, and having this personal development plan. And then finally, the percentage of seniors who are graduating with a high school and beyond plan that includes an acceptance letter, trade, military, vocational training, industry certification, or verifiable employment as part of that plan. So those are the draft goals as they are right now. Again, you saw that there's an iteration process, just like the portrait is going to go through feedback. These goals will go through feedback in the same manner. So the goal label and the measures will surely evolve. However, the heart, I think, of what's there has already gone through one iteration. So we felt good about sharing it with you tonight. I'm going to pause there just in case there's any questions or comments before we move to the next part. No? Okay. I'm taking too much time, so you can use that. Do you have the speed it up measure thing?
No, I
Okay.
think that's good, because there have been a lot of conversations and questions around what we mean by equity-centered strategic planning. So take your time.
Okay. So one comment I did want to, it was a slide that I didn't get to, that I didn't put in here that I do want to just speak to, and we'll get to you. And it goes to one of the comments that the students had made earlier, is once we have the measures set, the goals and measures set, it's at that point that we take a look at all of the students and student groups and identify where are there students who where are there groups of students who we want to be paying attention to a little bit in terms of how we are addressing their particular access, so there will be an opportunity to actually do that comb through, whether it's for English language learners or those elements will be part of the process. But it's really about first establishing, we want to have what are our goals for the students across our system. Okay, so once we get there, that's where the most of the work has been done thus far. However, we have started to do some work on the instructional effectiveness part. And this is where we start to talk about things like priorities or strategies or professional practices, or the things that the adults in the system are going to be getting really good at in order to achieve those goals for all the young people. And so we suggest that we organize our framework for all of our strategies and our practices and everything that we do around having a foundation that is shared. And that foundation we talk about as being made up of 4 pillars. That one of the pillars in our foundation is going to be around teaching and learning. So what are the capacities that we really want to develop and get great at, or continue to be amazing at, as we already are, around teaching and learning at Princeton Public Schools? The second pillar recognizes that schools can't do it alone. Schools work in partnership and in collaboration with parents, with community. And so we think about how do we want to develop and get really good at around those kind of collaborations and partnerships. The third pillar is all about investing in people, and the people in this pillar are all about how are we investing in the staff, the employees, the teachers, the leaders, and developing and supporting them. And then the last pillar is really around how do we bring it all together? There's a lot of things that are happening in a district and an education system. And so what is our approach to how we manage bringing all these pieces together? And so we go through before we start talking about, we think this practice or this strategy or this would be great, we identify what is the foundation we want to build on so that we have a shared understanding. And so I think this is the draft. Yeah, so this is very draft. We literally just worked on this, and it has had no rounds of feedback yet from any groups. And really even the core planning team is going to revisit it before it goes out for too much feedback. But I did want to share that they have drafted a very first draft of the 4 pillars. Thinking about in terms of teaching and learning, the big ideas were around culturally responsive, differentiated teaching, and ensuring high expectations for all students. Pillar 2, which is around schools can't do it alone, the foundation for pillar 2 being around a culture of trust, safety, and support for students, staff, and families. And it also includes this idea of making sure we're involving families and communities. Pillar 3 is all about investing in people, and this is about supporting staff, particularly through collegial collaboration and results-focused professional learning. And the 4th pillar, managing the whole, there's a lot of commas for now. We're going to bring it all together. We have effective, efficient, equitable, and transparent practices, processes, and procedures. I do like the alliteration as a former English teacher. I think it's very nice. So, so this one is really about how are we making sure that the operational system is working, and that we're being, efficient, equitable, transparent in all of our practices. So this is the hot off the press first draft of it. So where is it going? Where it's going is once the pillars are iterated and kind of refined, then, and this is just an illustrative example from Kansas City Public Schools. For each pillar, the planning process will guide the teams to identify what are the key priorities. Like, what are the key priorities around teaching and learning? What are the key priorities around schools can't do it alone? The key priorities around investing in people, et cetera. So you're going to go through a process to consider what are those key priorities. And then for each of those priorities, here's another just illustrative example, there will be a set of key actions, right? Key actions for each of those areas. And that will really become the engine or the driver of the work, right? What is the work that's in the plan for the district? Okay, so that's where we're headed. It's not where we are yet. We're just beginning to kind of get over into circle 2, but we wanted to provide you with just that preview of where we are and where we're going. And the last part that we'll get to, and we're not, this is towards the end, it wasn't even on my slide yet, is really talking about what we mean by disciplined implementation. So once you do have your roadmap set, you're going to be looking at how we are aligning resources and developing our leadership to ensure that we're getting to the ends. And we talk about, once you have finished planning the work, you have to work the plan. So your plan can be a beautiful aspiration, but it's not going to work unless you put in the implementation part. And it might be unbelievable to feel at this moment, but actually the implementation is harder than the planning. But we help guide to think through a way to unlocking kind of the success for the plan by thinking about what is the sequence of the work that will happen in order to implement. And we do that by organizing all of that work that's laid out in those priorities in terms of our roadmap, which the first part is what we're doing now, which is the system-wide strategic plan. We talked a little bit of how that annual school improvement plan will fit in there, but then there's what we're doing every week, every month, on a quarterly basis, et cetera, in order to support the system. But that's a little bit further down the road, but we wanted to be able to share that with you this evening. So I will get out of this sharing and just see if there's any additional questions or comments from the board. Yes, Susan.
In the process, do you continue to get that student voice? Because that's so important. Obviously, the the teachers are equally important, but getting that student voice in all of our grades to help guide where we're going, not just like a one-time, like it's great you're meeting with them, but how do we keep getting their feedback?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, thank you for clarifying that too. So one of the things that we're doing right now with students is more along the discovery, right? It's sort of getting their information about what their desires are. But then once we come to the fall, we have a revisiting of that, sort of what is the work to date with the students to get their reactions, their feedback on what's been developed. I will say that some districts have even transformed that team into a more formal team that becomes a student voice team that helps guide more than just the strategic planning process.
Well, guide not only the voice, but the implementation, and do
Yeah.
they really see the implementation? It's nice to talk about implementation, but do they really feel and see the implementation as we go through this work?
Yeah, I think one of the most frequent statements I hear, especially from the high school students, like, it's nice that you asked, but is anything going to change? So I think that that's part of, yeah, thinking about how you want to continue that engagement. It's great. Thank you.
Well, Lauren, I think you did such a fabulous job. You left us speechless, which is a very rare occurrence. So.
Well, I thank you for the
do have a
compliment. I
question.
appreciate the indulgence. Beth does have a question though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just have, I want to thank you too. This was very helpful. And as a member of the alignment team, I would just make a suggestion that we have so many people from the community who are interfacing with this project in different ways or have questions about it. I think it would be helpful for us as a district to make sure that this particular point in the meeting recording is actually shared, pushed out to those who are already involved in the process. And also, so members of my alignment team, I think would all appreciate have this kind of 10 minutes of real clarity about where we're going. And then also, you know, on our website so people can watch and just make sure that as many people see this and understand the overview as possible, because this was really helpful today. And I appreciate your laying it out for us.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
And I also thank you, Beth, for setting that up really nicely. I want to thank Elizabeth Collier again, and Elizabeth, Andrew, I should know Andrew's last name. They have set up on the district's website under the district strategic planning. It's a really nice cascading of all the different teams as well as the process. So that is there. We do have a community. Would you mind either Mutu or Lauren talking about what is the intention for, because there was some confusion with the last community forum. What is the intention of that community forum, and what would people expect to see or experience?
Yeah, great. So I'll start, and Mutio, if you think of something additional to chime in, please feel free. The purpose of the community forum is to bring the community through, in many ways, the same process that we just laid out, right? So having a chance to make meaning of the data, right? Doing their own discovery. And then to be responding and reviewing and providing feedback on the work to date. So we'll be, for the portrait, right? We'll be kind of engaging in the portrait activity with them and getting their feedback. We'll be doing the same thing in terms of goals. And then we will, as we get forward too, there's often an opportunity to, once we're clear, kind of like where we're all headed, kind of all have to get clear and like, okay, we all are on the same page, kind of where we're headed. Then we say, okay, let's talk about what are the strategies? What are your suggestions, right? What are your suggestions, particularly when you think about under Pillar B, but in any area, what are your suggestions about the strategic priorities or the approaches that should be taken? But it's focused really on the, you know, our community forum is focused on the strategic plan and the development of that plan.
really, every team goes through the same thing. What's different is how much time they spend on it. So core planning team, we have 2 days or 3 days, but in the forum, we have like 90 minutes. We do make sure that everyone gets a chance to see every part of the process. It's just, truncated. That's the primary difference among all the teams, really. Everyone gets a chance to weigh in on every part of the plan.
And the community forums happen multiple times so that there is opportunity to be engaging and providing feedback and input during. And then as things are evolving, can be brought back and shared. Yeah.
And just a quick, just a quick suggestion again about the community forum, because I was at the last one. I do think that the more information people can access in advance and, prep themselves so they understand the context is helpful. So they're not just given something on at once and then trying to process it in 90 minutes while they're doing on many other things. And then also just emphasizing again ways people can, once they processed and thought a little bit, communicate with you and share their thoughts. And so a little bit of an advance option of processing, and then also the opportunity and clarity about where they can send their thoughts to get them captured.
We'll make sure to do that. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Hope you have a good holiday weekend, and we'll see you we'll see you next week. So
We'll see you soon. Take care.
See you Thursday.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to item H1, which is our.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Kelly.
Mickey Crucifeli is just going to provide a very brief health and safety update regarding COVID.
Sure. Thank you, Carol. I think we all have to keep in mind that this variant is very transmissible, and we're seeing that we were hoping last week we would see a downtick in the cases, but I think there have been a lot of activities. I know there was the prom over the weekend, so we definitely are seeing an increase, especially at the high school. So we're watching those numbers very carefully. I think we have 19 so far posted, but there's really, I've gotten a few more, so we're about 21 at this point. So you can see our numbers. If you look at the dashboard, we were, for the week of May 7th, we were 95 students or 95 students and staff across the district. We were at that number right after the winter break. We were at 96. So our numbers are really up there. But we're hoping, we know that, keeping people distance, being outside, that fresh air circulating, and the masking, it does remind people that we have to be careful and we can't crowd together. It does make a difference. So I'm hoping that the other buildings will continue to show that downside in numbers. But right now we're just cautiously watching the high school this week. And then, let's hope we can continue to see a reduction after this kind of uptick. Any questions? Thank you. Daphne?
Yeah, sorry, Mickey. So when do you think, I know this is, I'm worried we're going to see another uptick because of all the activities that are happening, the year-end activities, but who makes the decision on the masking, and when we can revisit, that?
Right. So I think, if I have the dashboard up, so when we had the last uptick, we saw those high numbers, and then they really started to reduce, and we got down to like 5, 7, 6, then we got down to 3. That's when the masking, became optional in the state, right? So if we continue to see that downslide, plus the Cali number goes back down to where we were, I think we can probably say, we can encourage masks, but they're not required. So we work very closely with our school physician, and we work very closely with the health department in making those decisions. So we monitor very closely on a daily and sometimes hourly basis.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Thank you. Were there any other questions for Mickey? No, thank you for all you're doing. We appreciate it.
All right, that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, now we can move to item H1, which is public comment. And I would just raise your hand. Mr. Bolden will call on you. I just ask that you please just state your name and the street that you and town that you live in. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Everyone has a phone. Please set your timer for 3 minutes. If you go over, I'm not going to stop you, but please have respect for other people who may wish to speak. And just please keep your comments civil. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any comments at this time.
Okay. So moving on to item I1. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. Okay.
Hi, Jungween Chen.
Yes. Yeah, I just have a question for Ms. Oh, are the consultants left already from Performance Fact?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I'll just ask them the question next time I see them.
Or you can ask the question, we can get you an answer.
Yeah, I was just curious, what's the significance of using every 20 students instead of every 100 students in his demographic slide?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll get back to you, Mr. Chen.
Jill North.
Yes, thanks. You can hear me?
Yes.
Great. At the Board of Education meeting on March 29th, District Math Supervisor Stephanie Tidwell gave the community an update on the work of the Math Committee, which was formed to consider recommendations for changes to the math curriculum that have been made to the Princeton Public Schools by an outside consultant, Dr. Milu. I found Mrs. Tidwell's presentation somewhat confusing. So on the one hand, she explained that Dr. Milo's report had warned the district that its advanced course offerings and tracking in math were problematic. And she shared a slide from Dr. Milu that showed the recommendation that Princeton Public Schools should detrack through the 10th grade, resulting in the loss of math offerings beyond pre-calculus or statistics. But on the other hand, she and others at the meeting said that no opportunities would be taken away from students. So to get a clearer understanding of the recommendations Dr. Milu made that the district was considering and the rationales for these recommendations, I submitted a request to Matthew Bolden for Dr. Milu's report under the New Jersey Open Records Act. He responded yesterday, thank you, but with a heavily redacted version of the report with all of Dr. Milu's recommendations and their rationales removed. He didn't provide a legal basis for these rationales, for the redactions, excuse me, and it's hard to see how they could have a legal basis. I now see on the Q&A site that Dr. Kelly directed us to that it was supposed to be to protect teacher names, but I don't quite understand that since some of the redactions are of content that was in Milu's presentation to the Math Committee where we can see that it doesn't contain teacher names. So this seems to me literally the opposite of transparent. There's huge, the relevant text was blacked out, and it gives the impression that the district is trying to hide what they plan to do. And as far as I can tell, it also seems unlawful. New Jersey law requires the release of this report upon request. So I'd like to call on the board to direct the district to release the full unredacted report to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to item, all right, item I1, that's a consent item. So I will just start to go, I'll do item I1, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Item I2, HIB report card, 2020-21, that's a consent item. So now we're going to move on to the board committee reports. And we will start with the equity committee. Betsy Baglio and Debbie Braunfeld chairs.
It's Debbie today. She is unmuting herself as we speak.
She is, sorry. The Equity Committee met on Monday, May 16th. The whole meeting was devoted to a community conversation. Many staff and community members attended to share their thoughts. The committee plans to continue a community conversation at our next meeting on Monday, June 13th at 7 p.m. We hope you can join us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Moving on to the next committee, long-term planning. Beth Barron.
Long-term planning has not met since our last meeting. We have a meeting this Thursday at 4:30 p.m. and we will be reporting out after that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Moving on to operations, co-chairs Susan Cantor and Brian McDonald.
Hi, I'm going to give our report tonight. We met on May 11th at 8 a.m. We received an update once again on the construction, on the progress of the construction at Princeton High School. We were excited to learn that the new outdoor field bathrooms are available for use by our students and athletes. So that's a very exciting development. And the parts of the project that are attached to our main building are in their final stages of completion, as we will continue to get updates as the final stages are finished. We also received a tech plan update from Krista Galen and her team members. The department continues to develop a plan so that we can serve the district in the most cost-effective manner in our technology needs. We will continue to have them evaluate all aspects of our technology, including software, hardware, one-to-one technology, the payback periods, and PHS connectivity. We expect that they will be coming to us with different aspects of this reporting as they work on this long-term plan for us. And as always is our practice, we received an update on our sustainability and the district's continuing work to develop a sustainability comprehensive plan. And we have begun to hear that, they are working on getting to the ESEP that will help our lighting at PHS and PMS in terms of cost savings and to be energy efficient. So that's something we're excited to get more updates as we move forward. Our next meeting will be on a different day than normal. So it's going to be on a Tuesday, May 31st at 1:30. So the first parts are always open to the public, and we've been very happy to have public attending, and they have brought to us several issues that have been quite interesting for both the administration and our committee to hear. So we welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Moving on to personnel with Chair Debbie Braunfeld.
Thank you. Personnel met on Thursday, May 12th. We discussed several staff positions at all of our schools, and the district is still looking for nurses. So please reach out if you know a nurse looking for a full or part-time position. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to policy with co-chairs Beth Barron and Jean Durbin.
Thanks. I'll give the report. The policy committee last met on May 13th. We meet again on Friday, the 27th at 8:15. Tonight's agenda has the new policy manual from Strauss Esme on for a first read, along with mandatory regulations and board bylaws. The manual is a work in progress. Our goal is to have it on for a second read in the June meeting, June 7th. And we will be working on policy alerts and tweaking some policies in between now and then. Wanted to give a special shout out to our administration, Dr. Kelly and her team, for doing such careful work reading through the policies, as well as the policy committee who divided up all of the reading. Betsy, Susan, Mara, special thanks to you, Beth and I, thank you. And it's been a good process. So we look forward to moving forward. Thanks.
And thank you, Jean and Beth, and thank you to the board members on policy. You're taking work for the team. We're very grateful. Thank you. Moving on now to student achievement with Chair Betsy Baglio.
Thank you. We met on May 11th on Zoom. that this was an open meeting to the public. We welcome the public. We heard about summer school offerings, what's happening this summer for our students, enrichment, as well as classes to strengthen academic skills. We talked about a very preliminary discussion of option 2. Right now, our district offers that for athletics, for gym, but very preliminarily hearing that actually statewide, it would be an option potentially for other subjects as well. So our administration is going to be looking into that and bringing some information and recommendations to the Student Achievement Committee. We followed up on our seniors who are in jeopardy of graduating. We started a Saturday school, and by we, I mean the administration at the high school, to really help these students get back the hours that they need. And there have been other portfolio projects as well. And we want to thank them very much for helping to support these students during what was a very difficult past 2 years for our current seniors. The topic of boys volleyball came up, and the only thing we talked about for this is that there is a process for approving new athletic teams, and we've had some requests and questions come to the board about starting a boys volleyball team. So Mr. Dubinsky, our athletic director, is going to be following up with the students who made the request, and there will be a webinar from Mr. Dubinsky in June to just survey student interest in this program. So again, we're going to follow the same process we follow for adding other sports. So we thank Mr. Dubinsky for that work. We heard about professional development for staff members, which was helpful. Again, Mickey, you've done an amazing job. We received a nurse form that you've created for field trips. We've had a real difficulty finding nurses to cover in our school. So there's a nurse form that helps the schools figure out when a nurse is actually required for a field trip, and we really appreciate that. So we talked about that. Speaking of field trips, we have some field trips on the agenda for approval. The Watershed Institute trip is back for the middle school, and I'm really happy to report that they're taking 6th and 7th grade. This is usually a 6th grade trip, but our 7th graders missed it last year. So the next few weeks, they'll be there. And then there was an Odyssey of the Mind finals. Actually, that begins tomorrow. So we've talked about that, but that is something through Iowa State University. That's an overnight trip. So those are on our agenda for approval. We talked about the National Equity Project the Bell Network that we're a part of, and there was some additional documentation. There was some additional discussion with the board about documentation and data gathering. There's no additional cost for this. It does fall within our policies, so that was approved by the Student Achievement Committee. It didn't really need a formal approval, but that's something that we saw the council was weighed in on that as well. We talked about, we had a special education update, which we will have on every single Student Achievement Committee agenda. We really appreciate that. We heard about the extended school year and work on our SMART goals. And then we had a time for public comments. So our next meeting is June 8th, where we'll welcome Dr. Tu. Dr. Foster will still be with us. So we'll have a meeting with both. And we really appreciate the public's attention to that. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. So before we move on, I just wanted to circle back to a question in public comment. And we try not to do a Q&A, but where we can take the time to think and respond, we're going to do that. So Dr. Kelly and Matt, if you could just respond as far as the comment about the redacted report and the concern that perhaps the redactions weren't legal, if you could just speak to that process.
Yes, I'll let go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I figured you wanted me to. So we do get an awful lot of Oprahs, which are double-edged sword. It's very good and important part of the law, and we take it really seriously here. So I almost always, unless I absolutely 100% know, do reach out to our law firm, which has a partner who specializes in that practice. So, you know, he redacted that, so I don't unilaterally redact things. It's under the, you know, contemplative and deliberative, you know, underneath that part of the statute. So, you know, it's something we can look at. We did closely, you know, we looked at what was, and Ms. North was not incorrect in how she, you know, it was kind of the, you know, most of the meat where it was redacted, but it was put through the law firm.
Okay, so
I think the purpose of the report, again, was to audit the written curriculum. So the analogy that I've been using is if it was a spelling word and you were using Webster to see if that word was spelled correctly, that basically was his report. And if the lawyer is redacting anything that is, what did you say, Matt, judgmental or
contemplative.
contemplative, like that was his, that was the purpose of the report. And we are not attorneys. This is not our area of the law. So certainly the report, if the board would like to direct us to release the report as is, we could certainly do that, but we provide this additional channel so that we, when we're providing those requests, it does go through legal. So to answer the question, it was legal to help the community who feels that there is some type of hidden agenda with the report. Perhaps not as much.
okay, so I think it would probably be good if we could ask our counsel to take another pass at it. Because, I like to redact things too, but maybe they could not be so heavy in the redaction. I would say, I recall reviewing the report, there are some things that could be construed as personnel related. And there could also be some things in the report that's construed as evaluative of our staff. So I can understand having to redact that. And so I think we understand those redactions, but to the extent that judgment could be used to perhaps provide more information, as much information as we can, without compromising any of our staff or processes, I would appreciate that if we could do that. Just so the community is clear that, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now moving on to item K1, the first reading of our policies. Okay, and then we're gonna, and that's just a informational item, right? So now we're moving on, it's been a while. So we're moving on to, well, L1 is personnel. And so this is going to be, is personnel an action item, all of this, or are we going to put this as part of the consent?
They're all action consent items. Part of the consent agenda.
Okay, great. So I'll just go through it. Please stop me if you have anything to say.
Sorry, question. Don't we have to put the policies in the consent as well?
It is a consent item.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. First read.
Yeah, first read.
Go ahead, Deb.
Okay, thanks. Moving on, item L1, so please stop me if you have anything to say. Item L1, resignations, L2, retirements, L3, appointments, L4, transfer reassignment, L5, leave of absence, L6, personnel item.
Can I stop you for one moment and just note for the public that L6 includes summer hours for our guidance counselors this summer. This is really a wonderful thing for our students and our families. This is for the middle school and the high school, not obviously staffing fully our offices, but it means that there'll be someone there to receive questions from parents or students. And we just want to really thank the school counseling department for working that out and offering that to our families this year.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. So item L7, comprehensive equity plan. And if Matt or Carol, Dr. Kelly, you could please just speak to that quickly. This is basically a compliance item for the state. Is that correct?
Yes, it's actually, and the state is allowing school districts because of COVID to request an extension, which we have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item L8, substitute teacher student placements, L9, student services, L10, curriculum and instruction, L11, job description, data and reporting specialist, L12, hiring of retired certified staff member. That's wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca. That's great. L13, 6 period compensation, L14, revised staff appointment. Okay, moving on to curriculum and instruction, M1, student overnight trips, M2, student day field trips, M3, amend FY 2022 ESEA application, M4, consulting services with the National Equity Project. Okay, moving on. N1, professional consulting services, Okay, then moving on to 01, financial reports. 02, fire and evacuation drills. 03, registration travel agenda. 04, bond proceeds investment manager award. 05, food service management company renewal. 06, school breakfast lunch prices, 22-23. 07, technology purchases. 08, copy of NJSIG safety grant. Thank you very much. We're grateful to accept this donation. And 09, settlement agreement. So now we're going to move to item P1, consent agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Rob, second. Brian?
Sorry.
Went too fast for you, man.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
that was me. I was looking up something. Daphne Kendall,
Yes.
Betsy Baglio,
Yes.
Beth Barron,
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Yes.
Dean Durbin,
Yes.
Mara Franceschi,
Yes.
Mike McDonald,
Yes.
Susan Cantor,
Yes.
Rob Christopher.
Yes.
Consent agenda passes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bolden. And now we move to item Q1, which is our second public comment period. And do we have any hands?
I don't see any.
See, you say that too quickly. We do. We have.
Xiaobing Li.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Xiaobing Li. I live on Province Line Road. I have a few questions. I know this is not Q&A, but I do want to pose a question over there. First, regarding the planning, strategic planning process, my understanding is extended from the original plan. Originally, it's supposed to be completed by August, but now it's extended at least into September. So two questions related to that. First, for the upcoming public forum on May 31st, could you please post the agenda first to the public through email or website, so the community would know what will be discussed instead of stepping into the meeting without knowing what is the preset agenda. Second is, will the performance fact companies contract be extended for next school year? Because my understanding is their contracts for this school year for this planning process. And I have no previous knowledge about the strategic planning process for the district. How long usually it took for the typical process? Is 1 year, 2 years, or throughout the 5 years plannings, the plan effective tenure? So how long we should have this consulting service for that? The third, I mean, this is planning process. And then I have another question regarding the item, what is that? Okay, item M4, consulting service, national equity project. I saw on the agenda, it says that school will share the data with this consulting company to conduct research on how district participate bio network. My question is, will that result in hiring this consulting firm to further consulting service on equity? This is related to how the district is spending money on outsourcing consulting services. And my understanding is we have increased consulting services throughout this couple of years, and it's outside. How much effort we should spend on the internal stakeholders, listening to the students, listening to the parents, listening to the community. So that's my question. Thank you.
So Dr. Kelly, if you could just, because I know board members had this question too, if you could just speak to the strategic, but actually both contracts, and if there's additional cost to the district, and you know.
Sure. Regarding the performance fact, the cost is based on the actual service. The reason why the date is being pushed back is because of the level of engagement, and the process would not be complete without extending. So we, as we said earlier, would have loved to have seen, based on their experience across the country and other communities similar to Princeton. They originally planned to have a plan that could be presented to the board for approval in August, but based on where we are to date, they've pushed it back and have added additional dates. In terms of the second contract that's on the board's agenda, it's not really a contract, but rather we have, let's move back. When I came to the district, we actually, with the help of the former interim superintendent and various members of the admin team, applied for a part of a national fellowship called BELD, Building Equitable Learning Environments. And the technical support that we receive is from the National Equity Project. But this network is actually a consortium of various organizations, including CASEL, including University of Chicago Consortium, including a whole host of other research organizations across the country that's really designed to support excellence and equity in school systems. Princeton Public Schools has been selected by the Bell Network to be one of their focal districts. As a part of being a focal district, what they're planning to do is just document our journey of creating excellent and equitable learning experiences for all of our students. I know that most individuals do not look at educators as scientists, but we really are social scientists. And as such, we collect a variety of data. We collect data not just on test scores, but we also have to talk to our stakeholders, including our students, including our staff, and we collect that anecdotal, that qualitative data in a variety of mechanisms, including surveys, including focus groups, and you do that over and over again because equity is a complex situation where there's not one right answer. There's not one way to get to something. So that is the concept, some would call it action research. So the National Equity Project information that's on the agenda is the board allowing Princeton Public Schools to be a focal district of National Equity Project. My understanding is that even though Princeton Public Schools is a focal district, when they are discussing the work, our journey, they would not be explicitly using the names of administrators or the district, similar to other research that is done. So hopefully, and we could also have our partners from National Equity Project come and probably speak more eloquently than I can do regarding the process.
I think that would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bolden.
Multitasking. I never do that. I'm not good at it.
That's all right.
Bao Wen Zheng.
Hi, my name is Bawen Zhang. I have 2 kids in PPS. I'm also concerned about the district spending on consulting services. According to the board minutes, the board has approved over $300,000 this school year on consulting services. We don't need expensive outside consultants who do not understand our community at all. Please spend money on the students and teachers. They really need your support. And if you really want to use some consulting service, please consider working with the Princeton University. I'm sure they will be happy to partner with you. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bowen. Eleanor Hubbard.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Hubbard. I live on Prospect Avenue in Princeton. This is just a quick question about Riverside School. I understand from the last board meeting that Ms. Latimer is going to be moving to the middle school. We haven't heard yet at the school, like Ms. Latimer's departure hasn't been officially announced yet, so people are learning through word of mouth. But it would be nice to have some kind of official communication laying out like what's going to happen next year. Some kind of reassurance about who we're going to have as a principal next year, especially since we've been through so many in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. I just would like to add, the board can only meet when we have noticed meetings. And so our last meeting was May 10th. And so we met this evening in closed session as a board, and Dr. Kelly presented her, how she was going to proceed at Riverside School with the board, and a communication will be going out tomorrow. So part of that delay is Dr. Kelly needing to speak with the board. So thank you for your patience, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Rita Rafalovsky.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for taking the time. I'm Rita Rafalovsky. Good job. From Library Place. I just wanted to opine a little bit from an observations perspective on what I just saw with the nice lady present. I joined today in the hopes of better understanding what the methodology would be, what the framework would be for this journey that we're on. And I'm a little concerned because it feels to me like we don't have a school and we're building one. And we have, wonderful aspirations for what we would like, to see from our graduates, teachers and so forth. We have, vision, and we have ideas, and we have community engagement. But what I don't really understand is, we're not really starting from scratch, right? We have a school, we have, a lot of things, good things happening, with some fault. We do have some weaknesses, as every district does. I would have liked to see, kind of an evaluation of current state, where we are and where the gaps are, and maybe some of the areas of improvement. Like there's been a lot of talk about, equity, right? What does that mean? And, to be more rigorous in academics. Again, what does that actually mean? What does that translate to? So I would like to see some kind of, connection between those concepts. I think that would be very helpful, and maybe more concrete examples as well, because that'll help land all of this, very brainy, big vision ideas. It'll really help bring it to the ground, I think, and maybe connect people as well to the specific items. So, people who are maybe worried specifically about the equity question, with specific examples, like here's what we're seeing, for example, here's the things that we can do, kind of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 to improve things. And here's what, some of the districts have done in, I don't know, Washington and California or whatever, that has really done a great job. And, potentially these are things that we might investigate, might, adopt in Princeton. So just those 2 cents. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rita.
There are no other comments at this time.
Okay, you say it, but then there's always one.
They like to do it after I say that.
Yeah, they do. I think. All right, I think we're good. All right, so I'm going to move to item R1, which is adjournment. Can I get a motion, please? And I just wanted to thank everyone again for their time, for their commitment to public education here in Princeton. And we are grateful for the civil discourse and the engagement. And I think we have a great school district, and I think we can make it better. So thank you to everybody. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Betsy, second. Mara? All in favor? With that, good night, everyone. Take care.
Night.
All right.
Bye-bye.